There is a silent war that no one sees. No gunfire, no blood on the streets. But a war, nonetheless, ruthless, systematic, and insidious. A war not fought over land or gold, but over attention, willpower, and the very essence of masculinity. The battlefield, your mind. The weapon, pornography. You do not wake up chained in the morning, but you are in chains, invisible, digital, psychological. You are not free, not truly, because something you welcomed into your life, casually, maybe even curiously, now grips you by the throat, and you don't even realize it's choking you. You think it's harmless, a habit, a release, something private and controlled. But make no mistake, this is not entertainment. This is not pleasure. This is programming, and the cost is your soul. Carl Jung warned us long ago, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. You think it's just a website, just a few minutes, just stress relief. But what if I told you that every click is a ritual that sacrifices your energy, your discipline, your clarity, your drive, your manhood? You have been tricked, not just by porn, but by a culture that wants you weak, a culture that doesn't want you to conquer, but to consume. It wants you locked in a dopamine cage, chasing pixels instead of building empires, wasting your seed, your essence, your divine masculine force over and over again into a void that gives you nothing in return but shame, numbness, and spiritual fatigue. This isn't about shame. It's about power and how it's being stolen from you with your consent, because you don't touch your potential when you're drained. You don't build a legacy when your brain is hijacked. You don't discover purpose when you are chemically sedated with false intimacy. Your destiny is being postponed every time you choose the screen over reality. Porn is not just a product. It's an ideology. It teaches you to watch rather than act, to fantasize rather than pursue, to consume women rather than protect or partner with them. It rewires your reward system one video at a time until the real world feels boring, until real women feel too complex, until real intimacy feels like too much work. And then it breaks you, not visibly, but deeply. You lose your edge, your hunger, your fire, and you walk through life as a man with the volume turned down, soft-spoken, spiritually neutered, dominated not by a tyrant, but by your own appetites. You think you're free because no one is forcing you, but that's what makes it more dangerous. It's voluntary slavery. Jung said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. And that's what porn is, a distraction from your own depth. A quick exit from the discomfort of self-awareness. It's not just about lust. It's about avoidance, about the pain you never addressed, the rejection you never processed, the loneliness you never turned into strength. You run from those feelings. You run to porn. But you are not healing, you are hiding. And every time you hide, you shrink. A man doesn't find strength in comfort. He finds it in confrontation. And the first enemy he must confront is within, his compulsions, his shadows, his pain. You cannot become who you're meant to be until you face what you've become. You want discipline? Start by reclaiming your attention. You want power? Stop giving your energy to illusions. You want love? Stop settling for lust. This is not about moralism. This is about sovereignty. You were not made to kneel to an algorithm. You were not built to serve a server. You were not meant to climax to a screen. You were meant to break the shell of your weakness and rise into the chaos of real life. To fight dragons, to build kingdoms, to love like a warrior and protect like a god. But first you must kill the parasite. It does not live in your device. It lives in your mind, in the neural pathways you've reinforced with repetition, in the belief that you need this to feel alive. You do not need it. What you need is to feel your hunger again, to stop numbing, to stop sedating, to stop escaping. The men before us hunted lions, stormed castles, crossed oceans, and we can't go 3 days without clicking. That's not evolution, that's erosion. You are not born weak. You are being made weak. And if you don't resist, you will remain a consumer in a world that needs creators. You will remain passive in a universe that rewards action. You will remain soft in a reality that demands strength. It starts with a choice, not a grand decision, but a daily discipline. Choose to abstain not because you hate yourself, but because you respect yourself. Choose to suffer not for punishment, but for power. Choose to fight not because it's easy, but because your soul is worth the war. Because you're not just quitting porn. You're reclaiming your masculinity. You're rebuilding your mind. You're reconnecting with your core. You're stepping into the fire that forges kings. And when the voices in your head scream that you need this, remember, the need is the lie. You were not made to chase shadows. You were made to become light. And the moment you choose the real over the fake, the discipline over the dopamine, the path of pain over the pillow of pleasure, everything changes. Not instantly, but irreversibly. Because a man who reclaims his lust is a man who reclaims his destiny. And the world has never needed such men more than it does now. So what happens when a man stops feeding the machine? When he dares to unplug not just from the videos, but from the entire psychic infrastructure that's been installed in his soul like malware? At first there's chaos, withdrawal, disorientation. Your nervous system trembles like an animal being dragged into the sunlight after years in a cave. The pleasure centers, so accustomed to artificial stimulation, rebel. Your mind screams for the fix. The silence feels unbearable. Your body feels like it's dying for something, anything, to numb the absence. But that agony is not your destruction, it's your resurrection. It's not a signal to return to bondage. It's the sound of your chains snapping. The pain is sacred. It's the price of reclaiming your throne. Because you cannot detox from porn without detoxing from the weak man you were while addicted to it. You have to bury him. That version of you, the one who gave away his focus for a burst of dopamine, who hid behind tabs and fantasies, who feared real women and ran from responsibility, he doesn't get to come with you. He must be buried beneath the weight of your new discipline. Because in his place, something stronger must rise. Not just abstinent, but transformed. Do you understand what's at stake? This is not just about porn. This is about your soul's contract with reality. Every time you escape, reality loses its hold on you. Every time you indulge in unreality, the true world fades from your grip. Your ambitions dissolve, your instincts dull, your hunger softens, and you become programmable. You think you're alone opening your browser in the dark, but you're not. You're in a behavioral experiment. You are data. You are being studied, measured, manipulated. Billions of dollars are invested into understanding how to keep you watching. Not just watching, clicking, compulsively, repeatedly, with precision-engineered neurochemical bait. Do you think it's a coincidence you keep coming back? Do you really believe it's just your fault? It's engineered by scientists of seduction, architects of addiction, designers of despair. And yet the exit is always open. The prison door is unlocked. But walking through it means facing the storm you've spent years avoiding. And this is where the journey begins to split men from boys. Because real men do not run from the storm. They become it. They stare down the hunger, the discomfort, the fire in their loins, and they don't flinch. They don't beg for release. They transmute it, they channel it, they weaponize it. This is where the sexual force becomes sacred again. Carl Jung understood libido not just as a sexual drive, but as life force, creative energy, the engine of transformation. He wrote of the individuation process, the integration of the self through confronting the unconscious. Your compulsions are not the enemy, they are the map. Every urge is a compass, every temptation a direction, every dark craving a teacher, but only if you stop reacting and start observing. Because porn doesn't just steal your energy, it steals your gaze. It points your eyes away from the inner world and floods you with images that train you to look outward for validation, stimulation, completion. And so you never turn inward, you never descend into your depths. You never face the dragon in your psyche's primal force waiting to be tamed. You think you're horny, but you're actually hungry for wholeness. What you want is not sex. It's contact. Contact with the real, with your own power, with the intensity of unfiltered emotion, with the radiance of life lived in full presence. You won't find that in pixels. You'll find it in the furnace of your own becoming. This is what they never tell you. Sexual energy is not meant to be wasted. It is meant to be alchemized, transmuted, focused like a laser on your mission. Napoleon Bonaparte refused sexual indulgence before battle. Nikola Tesla remained celibate to protect his genius. Muhammad Ali abstained before fights to maintain his fire. These men weren't repressed. They were refined. They understood what you do with your energy determines what you do with your life. And when you stop leaking, you start building. Testosterone rises. Confidence returns. The fog lifts. Your voice deepens. Your walk changes. You look people in the eye again. You stop shrinking in conversations. You stop apologizing for your presence. You become a man who doesn't just want women, he attracts them. Not with lines, but with aura. Not with tricks, but with truth. Because women can smell a man who has his lust under control. He doesn't chase, he chooses. He doesn't beg, he builds. But even more than attraction, you gain something priceless. Clarity. Clarity to see through the illusions, to hear your true voice beneath the noise, to remember who you were before you were trained to forget, before the algorithm turned you into a spectator. You are not here to spectate. You are here to create, to build, to fight, to love, to suffer, to rise. But to rise, you must first fall into the fire of your own unfulfilled potential. Let it burn the weakness. Let it consume the excuses. Let it destroy the boy who feared his own power. And from those ashes, let the man emerge. Not soft, not sedated, but sharp, awake, untouchable. A man who doesn't run from his desires, but masters them. A man who doesn't chase illusions, but commands reality. A man whose soul is no longer hijacked but home. And when the soul comes home, the world begins to feel real again. The colors return. The silence becomes sacred. The simplest moment, sunlight on your skin, the sound of your own breath, the gravity in the woman's eyes begin to stir something ancient within you, something forgotten, something primal, not lust, but reverence. Because when you are no longer enslaved by your lower impulses, you begin to see women not as targets or trophies, but as mirrors, reflections of your own maturity, tests of your self-control, teachers of your emotional state. No longer objects, no longer obsessions, just sacred beings walking their own journey, just as broken and beautiful as you. Porn breaks that sacred gaze. It teaches you to fragment, to dissect, to consume, to reduce a complex divine human into a few body parts and a fake moan. And you carry that distortion into every interaction. You begin to look at women the way a starving man looks at food, not with love, with hunger, with need. But when you break free from that paradigm, when you've stared into the abyss of your addiction and emerged alive, you begin to look at women with the eyes of a king. Not because you need them to feel powerful, but because you've already found your power within. And in that space, you do not chase, you do not control, you simply exist whole, present, grounded. And that energy is irresistible. Not just to women, to the world. Because you've become something rare. A man who owns himself. A man who isn't controlled by the culture, the algorithm, or his own cravings. A man who walks with quiet intensity, speaks with grounded truth, and moves with purpose in every step. This is not just about attraction. This is about alignment. When your energy is no longer scattered, it becomes magnetic. When your attention is no longer hijacked, it becomes visionary. When your will is no longer compromised, it becomes sacred. And this is what they never wanted you to realize. You were never powerless. You were just distracted. You were never weak. You were just divided. You were never lost. You were just drugged by a world that profits from your sedation. The truth is, every man has within him a temple. And pornography is the graffiti that defiles its walls. Every click chips away at the altar of your potential. But when you cleanse that temple, when you rebuild it brick by brick through discipline, suffering, and sacred fire, you begin to live as you were meant to, awake, alert, dangerous. Yes, dangerous. Because a man who masters his lust becomes immune to manipulation. He cannot be baited with cleavage or cornered by craving. He sees through the facade. He feels the fake. He walks away from anything that dims his flame. And the world does not know what to do with such men, because they cannot be sold fantasy. They cannot be lured into submission. They cannot be ruled by shame. They have become sovereign. You don't need to fight the world to win. You just need to stop fighting yourself. Reclaim your will. Clean your inner temple. And let your energy return to its rightful throne. Your body will change. Your posture will change. Your focus will sharpen. Your ambition will rise. You will stop negotiating with mediocrity. You will stop tolerating environments that drain your power. You will feel the fire again. Not the frantic fire of lust, but the grounded volcanic fire of purpose. And that purpose will burn brighter than any fantasy. You'll stop chasing women and start chasing legacy. You'll stop seeking comfort and start seeking conquest. You'll stop escaping reality and start creating it. Because the man who no longer needs the illusion is free to build the real. And in that freedom, he becomes legend. Not because the world calls him one, but because he answered a call far deeper than pleasure. He answered the call of his soul. And when a man answers that call, the war is over. Not because he no longer feels desire, but because desire no longer commands him. He becomes the commander. He becomes the architect. He becomes the storm. And the man who becomes the storm never kneels again. But let's not romanticize this path. It is not gentle. It is not warm. It does not hug you. It demands everything. The death of your former self is not poeticid, is violent. It is a tearing apart, a psychological crucifixion. Because when you decide to quit the pacifier that has cradled you for years, when you finally face life without the escape, you will meet the parts of you that porn kept buried. The loneliness, the insecurity, the rejection, the inner child who never felt seen, the adolescent who was taught that pleasure was easier than pain, the man who never became whole because his hunger was always outsourced to illusion. You will face all of them, and none of them will lie to you. They will scream, they will rage, they will beg you to go back, but you won't, because now you know. The illusion is the enemy, the escape is the enemy. The endless pursuit of stimulation is the enemy. Not because stimulation is evil, but because when it becomes your master, you become its slave. And that slavery is not just mental, it is metaphysical. It drains your soul. It silences the warrior inside you. It makes your existence small. But when you finally choose truth over comfort, when you allow the storm of withdrawal to wash through your nervous system without running you, reclaim something that no amount of fake pleasure could ever offer, your essence, and with it comes clarity, so sharp it cuts through your old reality like a blade. You begin to see the world not as they told you it was, but as it is. You see the manipulations, the narratives, the design. You see how the male spirit has been defanged, shamed, medicated. How masculinity has been reduced to toxicity. How desire has been hijacked, commercialized, weaponized against you. They tell you to be in touch with your feelings, but then drown you in distractions the moment you feel too deeply. They tell you to be sexually liberated, but feed you a digital heroin that makes real connection impossible. They tell you to be strong, but remove every rite of passage that could have forged that strength. And what are you left with? A hollowed out generation of men who scroll instead of fight, who numb instead of build, who sedate instead of suffer. But you are not them. You are not meant to stay here. You are meant to climb. You are meant to walk into the fire and become forged. You are meant to carry something ancient through the chaos of modernity, the masculine archetype that cannot be bought, cannot be broken, cannot be silenced. And you don't find that archetype, you become it. You become it by suffering on purpose, by choosing discomfort when ease is offered, by staring at the urge without blinking, by sacrificing the pleasure of now for the power of forever. This is the hero's journey no one claps for. No medals, no applause. Just the cold steel of self-respect returning to your spine. Just the inner voice growing louder than the world's noise. Just the quiet knowing that you are no longer leaking power into a screen. You are storing it, channeling it, becoming it. And from that reservoir of reclaimed fire, you begin to do what very few men ever do. You build, not fantasies, real things, habits, structures, a body, a mission, a craft, a legacy. You stop asking for permission to live. You stop apologizing for your masculinity. You stop diluting your intensity to fit into a world designed for compliance. You become the man who can walk into any room and never break eye contact, not out of arrogance, but out of presence. The man who commands respect, not because he demands it, but because it radiates from his discipline. The man who doesn't just want to be free is free, because no screen owns him. No urge owns him. No system owns him. He belongs only to his mission. And the mission is this: to resurrect what has been lost, to resurrect the sacred masculine, to resurrect sovereignty, vision, fire, legacy. That resurrection starts in the shadows. It begins in the silence of a man saying, no more. No more to the pixels. No more to the numbness. No more to the cycle that promises ecstasy but delivers emptiness. It begins with a man reclaiming the throne of his own nervous system. And from that throne, he doesn't just rule himself, he reshapes the world. And know where you are? Not as you were, but as you could be. Because if you've made it this far, something ancient in you has already begun to stir. Something that has lived beneath the surface, buried under years of programming, silence, and shame. A fire that no screen could touch. A voice that no algorithm could mute. A storm that no culture could tame. You feel it, don't you? That rising tension in your chest. That ache behind your ribs. That heat crawling up your spine. That is not anxiety. That is power returning. That is your soul waking up from a long drugged sleep. That is the ghost of your potential knocking on the door of your apathy, demanding to be seen. Do not run from it. Open the door. Let the fire in. This is not motivation. This is not another dopamine hit disguised as self-help. This is reclamation of your body, your focus, your energy, your divine masculine birthright. Because somewhere along the way, they convinced you that your lust made you a slave, but they lied. It's not your lust that weakens you, it's your lack of ritual. It's not your desire that betrays you, it's your refusal to transform it. Your lust is sacred when it is channeled. It is violent when it is wasted. And you, brother, were not born to waste. You were born to wield, to stand at the center of your fire and let it forge you, not consume you. To take that raw, primal force and build temples, legacies, movements. To rise from the floor of addiction and stand as a monument to what is possible when a man chooses mastery over indulgence. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to decide. You just need to take that first unflinching breath and say, this ends with me. This cycle of distraction, this life of silence, this slow death by stimulation, it ends now. Because no one is coming to save you. Not a guru, not a pill, not a new website, app, or program. You are the one you've been waiting for. You with your trembling hands. You with your uncertain voice. You with your aching heart and your sacred anger and your buried strength. You standing naked before your demons, with nothing left to hide behind, nothing left to numb you, nothing left to lose but your chains. And in that moment of nothingness, something eternal is born. A man, not a perfect man, but a present man, a dangerous man, a man who doesn't fear his own hunger because he has turned it into fuel, a man who doesn't need pornography because he has remembered how to feel, a man who doesn't escape reality because he is finally creating it. So walk now out of the fog, step forward into the flame, stand tall inside your body again, and listen to the silence within you as it begins to sing. I am no longer owned. I am no longer weak. I am no longer asleep. I am awake. I am whole. I am here. And I will never give my soul to the screen again.